Hello, you're watching Dreaming Stories and my name is Anna. This is my first YouTube video. I love reading books and I noticed at some point that there are not actually so many people around me that read books and I can talk about books with. So I decided that maybe it will be such an interesting adventure for me to just join booktube community and hopefully to find some friends and some people I can talk about books with. As you can see, I have quite an unusual background. I noticed that majority of booktubers on YouTube have magnificent bookshelves behind their backs. Unfortunately, I don't have such a treasure. I hope this situation will change in the future, but at the moment I just decided to display my books, my treasure behind. So I can prove I have them. I do have books, I read books, and I love books. As a reader, unfortunately, I'm not able to categorize myself in terms of what sort of genre I like to read. Following many booktubers on YouTube, I noticed that majority of the channels are sort of theme-based, or at least people tend to read certain genres. Like, let's say, there are lots of channels that are dedicated to mostly fantasy or sci-fi, or other genre fiction, I don't know, horror, thriller, and so on. Or some people read primarily literary fiction. Unfortunately for myself, I've tried this approach and I just realized that it doesn't really work for me. When I try to read a certain genre for a long time, I just put myself in a reading slump. I think for this channel, if it will work and if it will go on, it will be a mix of genres. This year, for instance, I read mostly fantasy so far, followed by horror, historical fiction, literary fiction, and sci-fi. It can change in the future because I really don't want to limit myself as a reader and just create a sort of artificial box for myself when I feel obliged to read certain books just to satisfy a certain image of myself that I created. I really don't want to put myself in this situation. So I think I'll be reading variety of books, variety of stories, and I hope people will find it interesting. At the moment, my plan is to try to post videos once a week on a Saturday, and we will see how it will go from there. In my first video, I know it's a little bit too late, but I was thinking about the theme of this video and I just decided to do October reading wrap-up. So in the month of October, I read 11 books. So 8 of them are physical and 3 of them audio books. I would like to talk to you about the books I read because it was such an interesting experience and I found a new favorite, not like favorite, more like all-time favorite, but one of the favorites. And how I'd like to present my books is probably just not chronologically, but from the books that I like the least and to the books that I loved. I haven't decided yet, but I don't think I will be categorizing my reading in terms of stars, like star rating, just because I do give it for myself in my head, but I totally understand that it's very subjective. Reading, as any other experience in general, is very subjective because we form our opinions about books based on our experiences, based on our moods, based on situation we're in at the moment, and there are lots of different things that affect our experience of reading this particular story at this particular moment. I think it's very, very subjective. I think for now I'll try to stay away from ratings because, yeah, as I say, like, it's very difficult to really categorize it in terms of star rating because it can change. It did happen for me. Actually on multiple occasions when, for instance, I read a book, absolutely loved it, or didn't like it, and I gave it a go maybe in a few months or a year or two, and my opinion changed. Sometimes 180. So yeah, I think our tastes evolve, our opinions change. It doesn't mean that everything I do or say doesn't matter and it will change tomorrow. It's obviously not the case. But I think there are so many factors that impact our reading experience. And we evolve and our opinions change. And in general, when you read even ratings of the books, let's say on Goodreads, and for instance, you absolutely love the book and you gave it a 5 star, and after that, you're just scrolling through the reviews that people posted, and you notice some 1 or 2 star reviews, and you start questioning yourself. Did you miss something? Did you misunderstand the story? Are you wrong? It did happen to me. So it's not that you're wrong. We see stories from different lands, and it's wonderful. I think there is a story for everyone out there. Every book can find its reader. You might love it, someone will hate it, but it doesn't mean necessarily that the book is bad. It's just something didn't work for you or worked wonderfully for you, and now it's your favorite book. But it doesn't mean that everyone will love it at the same level, and it doesn't negate other people's opinions. So in my reviews, I probably will try to just explain what I like, what I dislike about a book, and maybe you can decide that if, for instance, you like this sort of things, you might like this book as well. Let's start with the book that I like the least. It's very unfortunate because it's not the first book by this author that I read. It's a book by Christina Henry. I already read 5 books in total by this author, and I absolutely love 3 of them. I love The Ghost Tree, Horseman, and Near the Bone. And this month I read 2 other books by this author, and one of them was unfortunately a very big disappointment for me, even though I was very excited about it. So this is The House That Horror Built by Christina Henry. In this book we follow a single mom, Harry Adams, and she works as a domestic help in a house of a very prominent and famous horror movie director, Javier Castillo. So we follow Harry in your exploration of the house and exploration of this relationship with the movie director and her thoughts about her daily struggles, her relationship with her only son. I always find that I really like writing style of Christina Henry, and in general I really enjoy reading her books. What didn't work for me in this case, first of all, the plot was very predictable, which I wouldn't say such a bad thing, to be honest, because in all of the books by Christina Henry I read, I found them predictable, but it didn't stop me from enjoying them tremendously. In this case, it was not only the fact that it was very predictable, but I found following the thoughts of Harry very annoying because she was literally regurgitating the same sort of thoughts throughout the book. It was, I think, in my opinion, unnecessarily drawn out, and it just loses the point at some point. You just don't understand why we keep following the thoughts all over again. Unfortunately, it just didn't really work for me, and as I said already, the plot and the twist were very predictable and not very original. So the second book of this month that I finished, it was Spellshop by Sarah Beth Durst. Yes, I didn't really enjoy it either. I listened it as an audiobook. I think narration is amazing. I really enjoyed the narration of the book, and the premise was very promising. In the Spellshop, we follow very introversial librarian Kila that works in the grand library with her librarian assistant Spy the plant cat, so it's a sentient plant. They have wonderful relationship. To be honest, I really enjoy following Kaz, even though we don't really have his POV, but he was magnificent. I think he was very cute. So this book is presented as a cozy fantasy, but cozy adult fantasy. I think it does work as a cozy fantasy, but I don't necessarily think it's an adult fantasy. So the thoughts by Kila that we follow, her behavior in general behavior of characters in the book felt quite juvenile. At times I felt like I'm not reading an adult book, but a middle grade book. I don't have anything against middle grade books. I do read them from time to time. I felt like there are so many middle grade books that I found more entertaining. I really would like it to be a little bit less surface level and a little bit more deep. For instance, in the first half of the book, I found myself a little bit annoyed because Kila, our main character, was keep thinking how she's annoyed that she has to interact with people, how introverted she is, and she really doesn't want to talk to other people. And she was repeating this thought all over and over again. I found it a little bit too patronizing, because we as readers, I think, can get this idea after one or two times of telling it to us. But it was keep repeating. The protagonist itself, I didn't really like her as well. She was unnecessarily rude to people. What I found irritating, that first of all, we see her love interest straight away. The first male character she sees in the book is her love interest. And he's super helpful, he's super cute. He was ready to help her with everything. But Kila was just unnecessarily rude to him all this time, until the moment when she supposedly started being interested in him. I found it a little bit perplexing, because if you think about a sort of situation in real life, I don't think that a normal person would keep trying if someone is very rude to them all the time. And if, for instance, we try to reverse the situation, we would criticize the male character for being rude. But in this case, we have a rude female character, and male character is over apologetic, sometimes in situations when I didn't see much of his fault, to be honest. So I don't know, it just didn't work. This part of the book as well didn't work for me. And in general, it felt, the world building felt very promising, but at the same time a little bit haphazard. Because when our protagonist arrives to a remote island where she grew up with her parents, and at some point they left for the capital, she arrives with a bunch of magical books. She comes back to her childhood home, and she's trying to establish her new life. And people don't really know her, so she's practically new to the island, even though people understand that she used to live there. We have all this sort of magical setting. We are always told that there are different people with different skin colors. Kilo, for instance, has purple hair, blue skin. We have different people with wings, with antlers. We have lion cats, we have unicorns, we have all sort of magical creatures. And it's all just thrown at us. We have mermaids, etc. To be honest, I just felt that just thrown at us just to tick the box. just to show it's a magical world. It just felt a little bit too much, just as if the author was trying very hard to create this magical atmosphere, and it was all bunched together, but it was just lacking something essential to glue it all together in a nice way. So it felt actually cozy and believable and just nice. So yes, unfortunately, I really tried liking this book, and I did enjoy some aspects of it. I found it a little bit quite entertaining, but these sort of things that I listed earlier just didn't make this experience exactly the one that I was hoping for. But I know that this book has very high ratings and lots of people love it. I suspect that just maybe I'm not the intended audience, and I still would recommend this book if you are looking for cozy fantasy. The next book that I read in the month of October was The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. I was very excited to pick up this book because I really wanted something witchy in the month of October, since it's the month of Halloween. In this book, we follow Emmanuel, and she lives in Bethel. It is sort of the secluded area in some alternative fantasy world where this very patriarchal religion reigns, with the head male god, which represents the light and fire, and as opposite to him we have a dark mother goddess. And Bethel, surrounded by dark woods, where witches that are servants of this dark mother goddess lurk. They used to be alive, according to religion of Bethel, but they were killed during some historical uprising by the first prophet. And the land of Bethel is ruled by Prophet, who has the highest political and religious power. So as I said already, it's a very patriarchal society. Men are allowed to have multiple women, which is especially the case in case of prophets. And women are supposed to be good wives and bear children. Emmanuel is brought up by her grandparents, since both of her parents died. Her father was killed in a holy fire, and her mother died during her childbirth. Our story begins when Emmanuel goes through the woods and meets witches that give her the diary of her mother. According to the story, the society of Bethel believes that her mother was in some sort of agreement with witches before she died, and there is some suspicion about Emmanuel. That's why she is told on numerous occasions not to go to the woods, not just because it's dangerous, but just because her grandmother probably afraid that she will follow her mother's steps. After Emmanuel's visit to the dark woods, plagues are released on Bethel. So our story is basically concerned with Emmanuel trying to understand history of her family, her history, trying to figure out what happened with her parents, and trying to understand the history and religion of Bethel. So I found the story and the premise very interesting. I found Emmanuel very interesting. Unfortunately, where the book fell short for me, it was actually the point of witches, which I was very excited about. Even though we do meet witches and we have this sort of background about them, but I felt there is not enough unraveling around witches. So throughout the book, they still just remain boogie women, but we don't really know much about it. So the next book I would like to talk about is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. So in Cackle, we follow our main character who just broke up with her boyfriend, or if to be precise, her boyfriend broke up with her just because he thought that their relationship are not spicy enough anymore. So they deteriorated. He thought that they just became sort of friends rather than a couple. It wasn't the opinion of our main character, but she didn't find strength inside herself to argue and try to change his opinion. But they decided to remain friends. In order to change something in her life, or because of some other financial, let's say, circumstances, she is moving from New York to a smaller town and takes a position of a teacher. So we follow our character in this town. It's a small town setting. It is sort of cozy, but we don't have much information about the town in general, I would say. But I found the setting cozy, which is very interesting because this book is positioned, is marketed as a horror book. And there are definitely a few sort of unsettling moments, but I didn't find them excessively spooky. I wasn't really scared at any point. But yes, it's if your interest is actually supposed to be a horror book. But I would say it's a cozy horror book. And I think the horror is not really the main point of this book. So in this town, our heroine is meeting new people and trying to make new friends. And pretty much from the first day, she makes a new friend, this enigmatic and stunning lady that lives in the town. And for some reason, everyone knows her. People are a bit weird around her, and our character is trying to find out, not really trying to find out, she doesn't understand what's actually happening, why people know this woman, and maybe some of them are friendly, some of them are a little bit uneasy around her, but she just decided to go along with it, and they become friends. It's a witchy book, again. I did enjoy this book. It's not a very deep story, but it's very sort of cozy, easy read, slightly spooky, and I did potentially enjoy personal growth of our main character, because in the beginning of the book she's sort of this let's say slightly broken and very upset woman that is just going through a breakup with her long-term partner. Is very emotionally dependent on this relationship, and she goes through a personal transformation through this book. So I would say the main of this book is not really even cozy vibes or horror elements of it. Is mostly about her self-growth. I probably would recommend this book for people who probably just went through a breakup and just need some sort of emotional pickup. I did enjoy it. It wasn't the best book I've read, but it's definitely worth reading just for the cozy vibe and a little bit of spookiness. And the next book I would like to talk about is the New York Trilogy by Paul Auster. It's a little bit complicated, to be honest, to talk about this book because it's a collection of 3 novellas. And it is interpretation of detective and mystery stories. I was a little bit internally misled into thinking that actually will be some sort of detective stories. They are not. If you're looking for detective stories, and especially for some quick and easy and exciting read in detective genre, no, that's not what you need. But nonetheless, it was a very interesting and unique read. As I said already, it is an interpretation of detective and mystery stories. We do have some elements of detective and mystery stories. Like, for instance, at least in 2 of the stories we have detectives. I would say in all of them we have some sort of detectives and writers. Stories do feel disjointed, but they are loosely connected via some character cross references, but they are not continuous stories. So it's not a trilogy. And I absolutely enjoy the writing style of Paul Auster. I'm actually considering probably picking up some other books by the author and just giving them a go, because it's beautiful. The way he writes, it just, I don't know, for me at least, it is enchanting. But please bear in mind that it's pretty much stream of consciousness. There is very little action or dialogues in the stories. So majority of the time, it is literally, I don't know if I can show you, it just paragraphs of characters thinking. Very long paragraphs. If you don't like many words in your books, don't read it. You will hate it. It did work for me in the sense that I really like the writing style of this author. And as I said already, I probably will check some other books by him. Nonetheless, the experience was a bit surreal because, as I said already, there is not much happening. There is not much action. Please don't expect pretty much any sort of action from these stories. But I would say it's a vibe. It is about searching, but not exactly reaching. And it is about slow descent into madness. So we are following thought processes of our characters in these three different stories, and how their thoughts are unraveling, and how they're descending in this sort of personal abyss while they are searching for something. So it is a lot about vibes and not much about doing. If you enjoy this sort of stories when you're just left with thoughts, reminiscings of your characters, and it calms you down instead of infuriating you, you will probably enjoy it. I did enjoy this aspect, although from time to time I did think like, oh, come on, people, just move on. Where we're actually heading. Nonetheless, another I enjoyed it. I would say one thing I didn't particularly enjoy is depiction of women and relationship with women. This is one of the examples of the sort of slightly older detective stories, let's say, with little bit sexist characters. So the way characters think and interact with women probably will not be enjoyable if sort of sexist behavior or thoughts irritate you. So yes, I personally didn't enjoy it, but on overall, I would say it was a very unusual and interesting experience. And to be honest, I really enjoyed the design of this book. It is part of Penguin Classics Deluxe Edition. I'm trying to collect this series. I think at the moment that's about 124 books in the series. I think I have 9 of them. Well, good luck to me. We'll see if I'll manage to do that, especially because it's a bit difficult to find in the UK. I think they're released in Canada and the US, as far as I understand. I did find them on eBay and some other websites, but it's a little bit complicated to find in bookshops. But we'll see. I hope I'll manage to collect all of them. It will be my personal Pokemon. The next book on my list is Lost Boy by Christina Henry. As I mentioned in the beginning, I read 2 books by Christina Henry this month, and one of them was Lost Boy. This is a retelling of Peter Pan, dark retelling. I didn't find it very spooky. I found it unsettling, but not very scary. If you're a scaredy cat, you probably can give it a go. I don't think it will be particularly scary. As I said already, I do enjoy her writing. I think it's very easygoing and flowing, even though, again, I did find it predictable. It didn't irk me that much, though, in case of this book, even though it's pretty much since the beginning I understood what's unraveling. But I think it was very interesting character and relationship study between our main character and Peter Pan. our main character is the best friend of Peter Pan, and he was the first boy on the island. And we are following the band of these boys and the relationship between Peter Pan and the main character and what actually happening between them. And I would say probably after this book, I don't like Peter Pan. I was really rooting for the main character. I wanted Peter Pan to die at some point. If you would like to read some dark retelling of Peter Pan, if you like Peter Pan story, I'd recommend it. Easy read, not a big book. You probably can fly through it easily. It was very entertaining, a little bit dark, and I just really like the relationship unraveling between these two characters. And the next book on my list is Signal Fires by Dani Shapiro. To be honest, it was a cover buy. For some reason, I just found this cover very cute, very beautiful. I was really intrigued by this cover, so I decided to give it a go. And it was a very enjoyable read. In this book, we follow several characters from two families. We have different point of views from different characters, and we follow for one of the family we follow pretty much unraveling and consequences of some tragic event that happened in the past, and we basically follow these characters, how this event affected them throughout their life and the consequences for them. And in another family, it's more focused on the personal relationship in the family, between family members. So I found the premise very intriguing. Plus, the writing is very, very beautiful. At the same time, very readable. It's not one of these flowery writings when you are lost in the writing and you're not even sure what's happening. So it's a very nice and beautiful writing, but at the same time, very readable, and it just carries you through the book. I think this book has a great, like tremendous potential. It is very heartwarming. There is lots of family relationship here, lots of reminiscing about some tragic events. It's a very emotional book, but what I found personally where it fell short for me, it's a very short book. We have at the same time, we have lots of point of views of different family members from these two families. And plus, at the same time, we're constantly jumping from one point in time to the next one. So we are traveling sort of in time with constant flashbacks. We're going back and forth between these events and between these family members. So at some point, closer to the end of the book, I found myself slightly confused. What is actually happening? What we're following now? So I'm not sure this timeline jumping and so much POV changes are really justified for such a short book. I think there could be some more elegant way of conducting the story rather than jumping from person to person and from one time to another. It was slightly destructive, even though it is probably more entertaining, but I just found it a little bit unnecessary. Plus, because it's such a short book, I felt like the author was trying to cover so much. I felt there is a material easily for at least two big books. If, for instance, we just break this book into two books covering these two separate families, and it would be wonderful. But again, this is just my point of view, and in general, I really enjoyed reading this book. I just wished it was more focused and provided a little bit more depth. But otherwise, it was very heartwarming and very emotional read. I would definitely recommend if you are in the mood for something short, but at the same time emotional and family oriented. I think it would be a good choice. Continuing our horror theme for October, the next book on my list is Diavola by Jennifer Thorne. You probably can guess it was a cover buy as well. I find this cover absolutely spooky, and I really enjoy this book. So it's a haunted house story. In this book, our heroine Anna went for an annual family vacation with her American family to Villa Taccola in Italy. In this villa, our character Anna is pretty much stuck with her family for their annual vacation, and we follow the unraveling of the story and the relationship with her family. Because in this book, we have two parallel focus stories. First, it's a haunted house story about Villa Taccola and all the mysteries that it contains. And the second important part of the book is actually Anna's relationship with her family, with her two siblings and her parents. I found both aspects of the book very interesting, even though I found the relationship part a little bit more flawed, and I will explain you why in a minute. But still, both of them I think were very interesting, very gripping, and very engaging. So in terms of relationship with her family, Anna is a very independent person, but she has quite an interesting relationship with her family. I would characterize this relationship with her family as toxic. Her family is constantly sort of poking Anna about her life choices, why she behaves in a certain way, why she doesn't do certain things, and so on. Probably some of us are familiar with this sort of family setting when you are the black sheep of the family and you're being blamed for everything, whatever happens. Plus, recently she broke up with her boyfriend. We find out why. And it's some part, like a little bit a smaller part of the story as well. We will see their relationship at some point as well. So, and the second part is about the mystery of Villa Taccola and why it's haunted and by whom. And I am usually not very affected by horror books, by horror stories. Well, it's not necessarily true because I'm actually a scaredy cat and I can't really read or watch, especially watch horror movies. I can't watch horror movies. It's too much for me. But living with my partner, I feel protected. So I can read horror books now. And yes, even though usually recently horror books don't really affect me too much, I don't really feel scared. With this book, it made me feel uneasy. I remember one night I actually woke up and I was genuinely checking if there is anything in the dark. So if you are afraid of horror stories, oh well, you can still pick it up, but maybe don't read it before going to sleep. That would be my recommendation probably, because I did find it unsettling. My one criticism about this book, why I wouldn't say it's absolutely amazing, let's say, even though it is very, very good. I would recommend it, definitely would recommend it. At times I felt that the execution of family drama, let's say, family relationship, was slightly forced, but I think it's very pretty much like nitpicking on my part, because I felt sometimes that the replies and interaction between family members were for the creation of this drama. Plus, another thing that bugged me in this book is actually what led to break up between Anna and her boyfriend, what she did, even though in general I'm not against of what she did. If you read the book or if you're planning to read it, you'll find out. I was disturbed by the way she handled it and how she presented it to him. I found it very insensitive. Anna is not a perfect human being, which is okay, none of us are. Yeah, just some parts of it I maybe found a little bit problematic. And another book on my list is The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Konicek. I hope I didn't mispronounce her name too much. I really apologize for it. So this is a retelling of Norse mythology about witch Angerboda, and about her life and about her relationship with her husband Loki. So I found this book being a very good myth retelling. I think recently we're pretty much bombarded by various myth retellings, and some of them are good, some of them are not so good. But I think this is an example of actually good retelling. It felt, at least personally to me, quite close to the style of Norse mythology, the way it's written. I found it quite genuine in style, so I would definitely recommend it. And it was a very interesting sort of study of relationship and of motherhood. So I don't want really to tell too much about the story. I just said that if you, for instance, if you enjoy mythology retelling and Norse mythology, I would definitely recommend this story. Unfortunately, I just didn't feel too much emotionally invested in the story, but apart from that, I don't really have much negative to say about the story. I think it was very well written, very strong, and I would definitely recommend it. And finally, my favorite book of the month is Poor Things by Alistair Gray. You probably know about this book via a movie that was released just recently with the same name, Poor Things. I haven't watched the movie just because, for me personally, I found out that I prefer reading books first. I had experiences when I watched the movie or went to a theater first, and after that, I was very reluctant to actually read the original book. In these situations, when I know that there is a book, I prefer to read it first. And it's a masterpiece. I would highly recommend it. Absolutely loved it. I am very excited to actually try to read other books by the same author, by Alistair Gray, because this experience was absolutely enigmatic. I loved it. Want to extend it. So I would say it's a feminist retelling of Frankenstein. That's how I felt it. So in this story, we follow Bella Baxter. We don't really have much of a story from her point of view because the story is deliberately wrote from the point of view of her fiancé. So I think it was deliberate, and you will understand why if you read the story. It is about Bella, young woman, pregnant, depressed, probably very mentally disturbed. She goes out one day, she goes to a bridge and throws herself out of the bridge. She dies. The body is being picked up by a doctor, who is our version of Dr. Frankenstein, and he gives her another life. So he saves her body and gives her a mind of her unborn child. So as a result, we have this woman child. She has a body of a grown woman, but a body of an infant. So throughout the story, we follow Bella in her adventures and in her self-development. It is a journey of self-development and self-discovery. I don't want to tell you much about what happened with the story because this will be spoilers. I think you should definitely find out it for yourself. I would say, for me, how I felt about the story. It was a book about a brave and strong woman and small and scared man. So if you're interested in this sort of premise, I would definitely give it a try. I would say book is quite stylized as well. It's very beautiful. I mean, even the art on the cover is very beautiful. But there are lots of illustrations inside the book. I'll try to find some. I don't want to show some of them. That's our Bella, for instance. So there are lots of illustrations. It is very exciting read. Another thing I noticed about the book, it wasn't written such a long time ago, but I think it's deliberately stylized to be felt sort of much more dated than it is. So it is basically staged in the past, in England in the past. So yes, I would definitely recommend it. Uh, Actually, not in England, Scotland. Apologies for it. So definitely, absolutely brilliant story. Highly recommend it. Our feminist Frankenstein retelling. Please give it a go. And I'll try to get back to you with more books and more thoughts on them very soon. Thank you for watching.